Lord, over Mangum. God, we thank you for the honor that you have appointed us as leaders of Mangum. And we just ask that you give us wisdom, that you guide us with your peace, and that you help us to surrender and submit to your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call members. Peterson.
Here.
Chapman. McCasley.
Here.
Huckabee.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum. The consent agenda. Items 1 through 5. You need a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion.
A second.
A vote? Peterson?
Yes.
McCasley?
Yes.
Huckabee?
Yes.
All right, moving on to remarks. Any remarks or inquiries by the audience not pertaining to any item on the agenda? All right, moving on to reports. Interim City Manager Financial Report. Larry?
Okay, there's a couple of pages that you need to look at. One, oddly enough, says monthly financial report, April 23. It looks pretty good. The top part is the general fund, and the bottom part is the utility numbers. So if you look at the yellow line under each of those, April actuals are ahead of last year. Year-to-date actuals are behind last year. You can see the percentage point there on both of them, but I don't think it's a crisis or anything. For the Mangum utility, we are substantially ahead of last year, it appears, although I'm a little suspicious of the expenditure number. I need to check and make sure that everything is in that. And last year, or the year-to-date actuals, we are doing better than last year, although both numbers are negative in terms of under-over budget. And you can see the combined over-under at the very bottom. We're better than we were last year. If any questions on any of these lines? At the bottom is the cash on hand, basically. So the first one is the operating cash that we use to do business day to day. We have a savings account, and then we have various CDs that are about equal to half our savings. So in pretty good financial condition, I would think. To give you more detail is the second page, which has all that listed, and so you can get a little clearer picture. We've got, about 2, 4, 6, 8. We got almost 20 CDs of various maturity dates. And that's got what the maturity amount would be, the maturity date, which the next one's May 10th. You can see that the percentage, the interest rate on that was really low. We should do much better than that this time around. I think last year there was a lot of rollovers that didn't really get much attention, and so they kind of went back the way they were. And so we're going to try not to, try to avoid that this year. Any questions on that? If you do have questions later on, I'm around after the meeting, and you can come by or call anytime after the meeting the rest of the week, and we can go through it again. Okay, that's all my financial report.
All right.
I included the Mangum in there, the authority, but that's okay.
Yeah. All right, item 7, discussion and possible action to approve an ordinance granting to Cable One DBA Sparklight the non-exclusive right, privilege, and franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a cable system in, upon, along, across, above, over, and under streets, alleys, easements, open areas, public ways, and public places now laid out or dedicated, and all extensions thereof and additions thereto in the city of Mangum, providing terms and conditions for the operation of such cable system and the payment of fees thereof.
I'll make a motion for
I don't-
discussion.
Okay.
Second. What is this for exactly?
This is actually a renewal.
This is a renewal
Yeah, it's
for it?
basically a
Okay.
Franchise
I
agreement.
was like, 'cause I thought
Yeah,
that's
it's
what we had.
these franchise agreements are only effective every 15 years, so this thing probably should have been renewed in 2021 and slipped under the radar. And it's just the cable system that's been, I think it's already there, it gives them authority to work on and things of that nature.
Although one of our guys had some concerns and says he has concerns with, when they come and look on,
Some of the language on the
Yeah.
poles and.
and he was supposed to come and express his concerns.
I'm seeing here, but, I scanned through the document. It had a lot of information about how things are supposed to happen. And, I think that some of the electric guys are probably wondering, you know, if they move a post, for instance, they move a pole somewhere else, we're gonna change our wires, but who changes their wires, and who's responsible for doing it? Sometimes they just get wrapped around the pole, and nobody ever comes to fix it. And, so, I don't know if it needs further consideration, more study on it, but, I mean, it's kind of boilerplate in a way. We get 5% of the revenues from the franchise, excluding some little stuff. But, so it's a moneymaker for the town, but we don't want to back ourselves into a situation where if we have to do some repairs, or, you know, we have a storm or whatever, we're going to put back our stuff, but we're not responsible for putting back their stuff. And, so.
And that's kind of how the contract reads? like
Yeah, I
it's-
think there just needed to be some clarity on it, and, you know, we can do that with a phone call, but you may want to wait till, I don't know, is there a deadline for doing this?
And like I said, I think this
It
was
was
actually supposed to be
done in
renewed in 2021, yeah.
So
Surpassed
we
that.
missed the deadline?
Yeah.
So could we table it and possibly contact them to make sure the
I think
verbiage
that's
is what we
probably
need it to be?
just for a comfort level. I don't think there's anything probably major, but just so we feel better about what we're signing, because it lasts for 15 years, and you probably can't amend anything after that.
One of our guys were to mess up their lines, their cables or something.
Yeah,
Who's
we just need to know,
responsible?
you know, we don't want to get in a situation where we're pointing fingers at each other. No,
Right.
that's your job, or that, no, that's your job. And I think it's mostly clear on that, but just probably need a question or two answered.
Is there someone, like a contact that we have that we communicate with?
There was a
On a
name
general
on that,
basis?
on that letter, and I was gonna print it out, but it wouldn't let me print it out, so I like to have paper in front of me when I'm talking about stuff, but I think there was a name on there that we can call. And,
The lady had reached out to me. I had contacted her about a mural on the side of the building. And so then after that, I guess they figured out that the franchise had expired. So if I need to reach back out to her to ask for contact of who it is that we would talk
Yeah.
to, you know, like on a local
Right.
level, if we were to need something.
And also, I'm curious to know if we've been operating under the previous agreement all this time, and we've been getting payments from them for the revenue that they get. And if we have, then that's good, but if we haven't, we need to make sure that that's done in some way. So, yeah, just some minor questions, really, just to clarify, you know, who's on first and who's on second, that kind of stuff.
Amanda Moore is the contact.
There
That's
you
the lady
go.
I had
I was
spoke
gonna say,
to.
is that the person I talked to?
Yeah.
So I'll make
Uh,
a motion.
I wish they'd let me print it out, because I'd like to, carry it
Yeah.
with me when I'm talking to people, but I can call, well, I'll check with Gordon and Chris again to make sure what their issues are, if they have any, and then we'll just address them specifically with them and be ready for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
So I'll make a motion to table it until we get the information we need to renew it.
I'll second
Vote.
Peterson?
Yes.
Castleton?
Yes.
Buckbeck?
Yes.
Do we need a vote to table it or no?
Yeah, you have on the table, because if you vote to table it, that means it'll go in the next immediate meeting.
Okay. Item 8, presentation and discussion of the Mangum Utility Authority, City of Mangum, and all related funds, estimated needs and revenues for fiscal year 2024, with emphasis on prioritizing funding and projects.
Okay, so everybody's got a packet. I guess this is where I talk about the budget. And I've tried to get it to everybody early enough that you could look through it and try to absorb these many thousands of numbers. And but these are very preliminary, so we're not voting on this today. We're just looking at where we're headed, and if you've spotted something you want to ask a question about, I'll just kind of go through these. I don't know how much time you want to spend on the detail of it. I can go through these and just talk about them real briefly. You're looking at the general fund summary, the top page. This is basically all the departments that are sort of paid for through taxes of some sort. And on the second page, there's a detail of those taxes. And I've talked to each of you individually about these, and so if you have questions, just interrupt me at any point. Let's just quickly go through, until you stop me, the department spreadsheets. The thing to look at really is the 2023 budget versus the 2024 budget proposal. And if the numbers don't look right to you for some reason, if they're way high or way low, it's probably due to mergers of departments and things like that, but I'll try to spot those for you. The first one, of course, is the City Commission, which is you guys. The second one is the administration, which we have changed a good bit. This is Irma and the gals up front, and Jennifer, Shelley, and there's a vacancy in there right now. So it's basically, I think, 4 people in this department. And so it's different than last year's budget by a lot, because we've reduced the number of people that are in this department. Some have gone in other places. I think one position was eliminated from last year, or from this current budget. So I don't know if there's any highlights there. Trying to see where the budget's about 19% below this current budget, so that's a good thing. City Attorney's Office, we don't want to pay him anymore, so.
Bye, Corey.
On.
It's
Here for the company.
Can I vote first?
Have a very long life.
It's pretty basic. Have I got 2 of these in there, City Attorney? I do on mine. Do I have 2 pages of City Attorney on yours?
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be the municipal judge, and then I have put the wrong page in there, so. But the judge is like $3,600.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of money. Police Department, we've moved out animal control out of that department. So right now it exists as police and dispatch. So it's still a little bit up over the current budget, because we've, I think we've been more accurate on the employment costs and things like that. But it's like 2.9% up employment expenses, and on the operating expenses, we're up a little bit more to be more realistic. You know, some of the things that were just woefully under budgeted, and you can compare the 23 budget to the 24 budget across there, and you'll see some, a few categories that are up quite a bit, but overall, if you look at the bottom line, we're 5% down in total spending. A lot of that, though, has to do with transfer stuff, and I can talk more about that. But last year, or I say last year, the current budget has a lot of transfers to things like fleet management, general government improvements, and 2 or 3, 4 or 5 categories, really. And what we've tried to do is simplify the budget so that we can better understand it, everybody, and really just transfer stuff to the general fund, and from there decide how to do it, and it'll be reflected in the general fund's income and expenses. So here, like if you look at in police, like last year to fleet management, they sent $52,827. We don't have any transfer this year. So, and what that is police doesn't make any money, so it's probably money that the MUA sent over, and they attached an expense to police because they were going to buy a police car or a truck or whatever. So that's how that worked, and we're trying to do it a little bit simpler this time. We'll find out if the auditor likes it or not, but we'll be meeting with her on Thursday. Fire department's a lot of similarities. We have some, our costs are going down on that. We've still budgeted pretty aggressively, but there were some, I think the current year's budget was a little high in most places. So it had some transfers too. So right now we've got a pretty substantial decline in the cost of the fire department. And that doesn't, we still got the same number of people budgeted. We have 1 vacancy there right now. So I don't really understand the budget from the current budget because it just seems oddly too high. But anyway. And it may have been, sometimes there's grant money that comes in here, but I don't budget grant money because we don't know if we're getting it, unless we know we're getting it. So that's where that is. Street department, I didn't get finished with all the blocks that I wanted to put in there. But it had transfers last year as well for a vehicle. I don't know if it was we bought a dump truck this year, but that doesn't cover all of it. But fleet management is like a bank account. It's got a lot of money in it because we put money in it every year so that we can buy expensive stuff. So that's what that is. Right now, that street department is up, and the biggest reason is under operating expenses, materials and supplies. We are tripling down on materials to do potholes. And we've started, but the weather's not been cooperating. It needs to be a little warmer, but we're going to have materials to last us all summer. And we're going to make a substantial dent in potholes. And we basically started around the city hall, and we'll be going out like square by square, block by block, until we cover the whole town. And hopefully we can, I don't know, nobody knows how much it's going to take to do every pothole in town, but that's our goal. So we put a substantial amount of money in that compared to last year, which was $4,300. And, the street guys were just kind of laughing at that budget number, because it was like, okay, there's 1 month's worth of work,
They
but.
were just throwing gravel in the potholes, that's the problem. We're not
Yeah.
fixing them, we're just throwing rocks in
Right.
them.
So this year we want to do them right as we can with the limitations that we have. And so we've put really 4 times the amount of the budget in there, which is still not a lot of money, but $20,000 for that. And so that's, if you look at your bottom lines down there at the bottom on the street department, that $20,000 is the increase in the total department expenses. So. Parks and cemeteries is another two departments that get combined. It is, we had a capital outlay in last year's budget of 12,000. I don't really know what that is yet, or what we spent it on, or if we've spent it. Do you recall if we've spent money on that 12,000? It may, I think it was for a mower or something, wasn't it? I think did we buy one? I can't remember. Yeah, we may have, because some of them are, the ones they bought may not have been heavy-duty enough. They're kind of asking for another stronger one that, you know, we can certainly talk about with you guys. The numbers I've looked at, I think were in the $10,000 range.
For commercial mowing?
For a commercial mower, and it's certain width, because in the cemeteries, you only have a certain amount of space. So they don't want a huge wide one, they want one, I think it's 42 inches or something like that. We do have, and I don't have it on these papers, but we do have ARPA grant that we still can spend money on. So I'll talk about capital improvement type stuff later. I don't really have anything prepared for it other than just verbally, but we do want to look at a more. We also want to look at a backhoe, which we've gotten a bid for, like, I think it's 119 or something like that, and which is pretty reasonable, I think. It's a good one. We are losing, you know, basically two backhoes that are, it's not going to work. We can't even cannibalize them and make one out of it. So both the streets and the water use those a lot. So.
Didn't we just have one repaired?
No, that was the loader.
That was the loader. I thought
The
that was-
loader
I thought it hit the
we
back.
repaired, we had to send it to Lawton, it was about
Okay.
$10,000 to repair it. So we decided to repair it rather than try to buy a new one of those.
Okay.
And try to get another year or two out of it before, if that's gonna be on the list at some point. Okay, so, the library, it's, pretty even, 3.2% increase overall. He has asked for a part-timer, to, help out when, in the evenings, when the kids are there. 20-hour type thing, you know, that's probably $10,000 a year plus payroll taxes and stuff like that, probably 11 or 12 overall for a year. You'd like to do it full-time, part-time person. I told him I'd bring it up. You guys can ponder that. Like I said, we don't have to make decisions tonight, but I wanted you to know that has been asked for.
How many kids are down there, like, in a normal afternoon?
Well, it depends. I think the most that are down there are probably 10 or 12 on a heavier night, 3 or 4 on light nights. So.
And we have two
We have
full-time librarians
two
right now?
full-time librarians. And I pointed that out to him. I said, you know, they open at 12 or 11, 12 to, I mean, they're only open like 8 hours, 12 to 8, I think, or maybe it's 11 to 7, I can't remember.
We're open they're open from 9 to 6.
9 to 6?
9 to 6.
I think it was 8 hours, because he told me, and it was 8 hours. But anyway, so I just wondered, okay, what are we doing? We got 2 people with and probably never more than 12 people in the building. So I think what I suggested that might happen is that he might ought to, or you guys might want to take a tour, let him talk about what he does and stuff and get a better understanding of it. So if you guys want to do that, he'd be expecting to, you know, give a tour, and you can go as a group or individually when it's convenient. But I think that'd be worth doing.
They probably come in they clock in at 9,
Do they? Okay.
unless they come get ready over there.
Well, maybe they do close at 6
Do they both
because.
clock in together? They're both there every day?
Yeah, I
for
know.
those hours?
To me, it feels like there could be a staggered start, and it's, you know.
Yeah, half shift.
So that there's always an adult down in the basement when all the video games are being played, because you can't really use a kid down there to supervise a bunch
Right,
of other
yeah.
kids.
Okay.
And so I think that conversation would be worth having during your tour, is that, what can't we do it this way? And I asked a similar question, and, you know, he says he does a lot of analysis on, when he orders books, looking to see what's trendy, what's bestsellers, what's this. And for him to get up and go to the front desk to help a customer is like, you know, us going to the front here and doing some work and then coming back to our office to try to get something done. But there's still two people there, and I just don't know what, in my head, I'm hard to see the workload. I could be wrong, but, you know, it's something to look at.
Okay.
The Community Services Department, which I didn't even realize we had a department like this, and I'm still not sure what all it entails, but this is probably, these are maintenance costs, I believe, and I don't know if Irma or Corey knows most of this, but apparently we do some work on all these buildings. I don't think it includes insurance, but it might. And that's one of the things that I'm still working on, insurance, and I've talked to some of you about this. We have very low deductibles on our insurance, both property and liability, and I think there's savings to be had when we renew, which we don't renew until November, by increasing those deductibles. You know, town, we ought to have more than $1,000 deductible on liability insurance, you know, and I feel like we can save 10 or 20% by, you know, changing these deductibles to a more reasonable level.
You no longer have a mill site.
No, I don't have a what?
A mill site.
Where's the
You've got a
mill?
$1,200 budget for that, but we don't have a mill site here anymore.
Excellent, okay.
So let's
We've saved
put
money
that
right off the
somewhere
bat.
I'm like, we don't have this.
This is the
Okay.
list that I was working from, so
Okay.
I just put the same number they had in there last year, because I didn't know what it was.
This says mill site
he's-
service payment is $6,000, so that also needs to go.
That's going?
Yep,
All right.
that's $7,200.
Wow, that is good.
Unless we have to still pay something, because I think they send them over to Granite. So I don't know if we have any costs associated with it or not.
Well, it's for Greer County. I don't think so. I think it's funded from Granite's mill site.
Good.
And they go through public transit, so that has no cost effect on us, I don't think. I mean, we can double check, but I don't think we do.
That would be good.
Okay, good.
I believe that $6,000 fee was basically,
For transportation?
well, us paying them to keep the mill site here.
Oh, I see.
Is
And-
essentially what that was for.
But the legislature pretty much did away with it.
Yes, they didn't have enough revenue there, people consistently coming, so they literally like shut the doors one day and
Yeah.
disappeared the next. So,
The next page is information technology. This is our contractor that works for us, Rayman, everybody knows him. We have a big expense on telephone and internet, and it looks like a lot to me, but I know the city has a lot of phones and stuff. I don't know if Irma knows any more about that or not, but I'm going to be researching that a little bit more. I based the budget on kind of what our end-of-year projection was going to be, so it looks like it would be less than our 2023 budget is. So that should, hopefully that can go down. It just seems a little
We're trying to
high.
figure out on those cell phones, we're paying for those hotspots. a
And
couple
you've
of
already taken
lines
care
that
of one of
were-
the hotspots,
We've got
the
a couple of,
animal
a
shelter.
handful of hotspots that need, yeah.
Yeah,
we're trying to
so
locate.
Irma's been a good detective on that, and tracking down these bills that come in about hotspots, and, you know, it's stuff that somebody did, and maybe it was a good idea at the time, but, you know, we don't really need anybody at the animal control shelter except to feed and clean up down there. The rest of the time, we want them in town because that's where all the dogs are
Right.
and whatever other animals we tackle. The next page is City Manager Department, which is a one-person department, and budget. The current budget's like 123,000. The proposed budget's 87. You know, obviously this is me, and I've tried to come in well under what we've normally done in Mangum, and so. If you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer. I did put a little contingency fee in there for whatever reason we want to, if we run over, we've got some stuff left. The last page is the city superintendent and the shop person. He had his own, they both had two different departments, so we just put them together. You know, the superintendent over the shop. I'm not sure that's the best merger, but for now, it looked, you know, like a good idea. We're down considerably in that department, about 22%, and so basically it's just mostly employment expenses and some materials, some tools. Almost all these pages will have a like down liability and property insurance. So every department's getting an expense for our total insurance, which I think was 88,000. And so those are not, I mean, basically you take that 88,000 and spread it around, and that's how you get that number. But I'd like to see that get down to about 70,000 if we could do it, and should be able to. So that's the general fund summary. I know at some point you'll probably have some questions, and we have questions too that we'll be asking the auditor when she comes in on Thursday. So the next packet, we haven't done this part yet. The Mangum Utility, we want to save that one, but it says to do both here. It says Mangum Utility, City of Mangum, and all its related estimated
We have
needs.
the NUA one on.
I was gonna say the NUA one.
Okay, so I'm going to save this one to the next meeting? Okay.
Okay, so that doesn't need any action, right?
No,
Any
this
questions?
is not a vote to approve anything necessarily. This is a informational, kind of where we're at right now. And I welcome any thoughts and ideas that you guys have going forward.
We're gonna make a nice long list for you, Larry.
Okay.
Do you guys have anything before we move on? Questions for now? All right, you ready to move on to item 9?
Pardon me?
Are you ready to move on to item 9?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Discussion and possible action to approve invoice 22-3009-1 in the amount of $3,334.50 for sanitary sewer main and wastewater treatment plant upgrade from Myers Engineering.
I'll make a motion.
Vote.
Peterson?
Yes.
Heslin?
Yes.
Huckabee?
Yes.
All right. Staff and board remarks. Any remarks or inquiries?
I promise I won't be long. Brandon's out of town. His wife's father had passed away, so did y'all get, so you'll see it looks different from, me and him are different. He's an Excel guy. I'm a just printed off Otis guy. So one thing I do want to address first is Larry had asked me to kind of do an estimate of what it cost well, not what it costs, but how many overtime hours we utilized during the Derby time. And estimated officers are around 60, dispatchers are around 40 total throughout that Derby time. The reason being, we're a town of normally 26 to 2,700. During that time, I was asking Corey, we bring in 30 to 40,000 people over that weekend. So obviously we try to make sure we've got enough coverage out there, including dispatch, in case it goes crazy, which, you know, thankfully it didn't this year. The weather was great, and, you know, we did have a few issues, but nothing major. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. If you look down the incident reports, you're going to see two different numbers. you're gonna see a number of 31, and then somewhere in there, it also says 34. The reason for that is that we probably had 3 or 4 cases that actually kicked off in March that didn't get into the system until April. So the actual number of incident reports that we did in April was 31. Now, I'm on the first page here, so we're in this big square. So if you go about halfway down there, you're gonna see a homicide. We did not have a homicide. Okay. We did have a couple of incidents that took place that, in preparation of that and to be ahead of it, just in case, that was added to the report. However, there was no homicide, so that will be corrected. It just didn't get there yet because we're still working on those cases. On the second page, you can see how many reports each individual officer did up there at the top. Again, you'll see that it says 34 instead of 31, and that's why I say you probably had 3 or 4 reports that were from the month prior that just didn't get in. Citations, we had 18 actual citations. We had 1 or 2 warnings issued during that time. If you look down at the bottom of that deal, I'm assuming that the method summary is what was actually brought in, the fines that people actually paid for getting their citations, which was almost 3,000. So that's pretty good for people to be coming in and paying their citations like they need to. On the next page, we issued 5 warrants. Those are city warrants. The way we're doing that right now is the day or 2 before city court, we will, if we come across somebody with a warrant, we will arrest. Otherwise, it's people that are incarcerated in the county jail for maybe a county offense, but they also have a city warrant. We'll go ahead and bring them over and get that taken care of during city court. Warrants issued, I don't know exactly what the 1674 is, but I'm assuming that that's actual payments that were received from people that had warrants, or that's how many, because I don't see where we issued any other. But you can see where Irma and Shelley both entered warrant recalls. That means that either they came to court and we made another deal with them to make a payment plan, or they came in and paid that. So there's almost 2,000 right there. Civil process, we're never going to have anything there. We don't do those. And then we had 1 collision report that you see on the last page. And then you'll see the radio log summary report. We don't do radio logs through the city of Mangum's Otis. We do it through the county's Otis. The reason for that is because we dispatch for the entire county, whatever entity that may be, whether it's a volunteer fire, sheriff, fire, EMS. So it's easier for them to go through that. However, if we work a case or we get a case, we can request them to go, because they have access to our Otis as well. They can go on there and replicate that radio log onto our system and assign a case number. That way we don't have to come in, and then they know exactly, print out this report, print out that radio log, whatever. So unless y'all have any questions, that's the nuts and bolts and the easiness of it.
Sounds good. All right, any new business? Thank you. All right, a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I second.
All right.
Peterson?
Yes.
McCaslin?
Yes.
Huckabee?
Yes.
All right, moving on to the utility authority meeting. Call this meeting to order with a roll call of members.
Peterson?
Here.
Manasco?
Yes.
McCaslin?
Here.
Huckabee?
Here.
Do I need to say Mark's name?
Yeah.
Chapman?
All right, we have a quorum. The consent agenda is item 1 through 4.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Vote, please.
Peterson?
Yes.
Manasco?
Yes.
McCaslin?
Yes.
Huckabee?
Yes.
All right, any remarks or inquiries by the audience? Okay, moving on to item 5, discussion and possible action in regard to reviewing the city of Mangum to collect a $2 power plant fee on residential meters within the corporate city limits to the city of Mangum for the operation of the power plant.
That's something that came up during budget processing and really came to life when we had power outage and the plant didn't fire up and work. And so a lot of people question, well, what are we doing with this money? And we've been collecting apparently this money for several years. We don't know the full history. I don't know the full history, and we've done a lot of research, but because of the budget process, it kind of got stalled. But we think, in the neighborhood of $300,000 built up over time. And we have other electric needs. All of our people think that the power plant is dead. It's not ever going to come. And so why are we still collecting the $2? And so it'd be my recommendation that we consider discontinuing the $2 power plant fee, because it's not going to the power plant. And I don't think we should tell our constituency that we're collecting it for the power plant when we can't even spend the money on the power plant, because it's not going to operate. And as far as we know. Now, we're probably going to have a couple other folks come in and say a prayer over or whatever, and see if they think that it can work ever. But I've talked to, the people that we buy electricity from, and they say, don't spend good money after bad, and that kind of thing. So I think, it probably makes sense for us to discontinue it and then figure out how we can spend the money that we've collected so far to improve our electrical grid that we have here. And there are needs for it, and so at least we would be spending it on the topic, electricity, that we said we would spend it on. So, and others may have a different viewpoint of that, but to me, that's kind of makes sense that we stop doing that and take it off the utility.
Anybody else? She's got steam coming from her ears right now.
I still want to see if Bradford will come and give us some
That's
clue
fine.
what to do,
Yeah.
and if we can get some grants for it. I know it's gonna take a lot, but, take 20 years to pay for it. I hate to give it up.
Well, we're not giving up.
I think Bradford.
What we're
will
doing
give
is
us an
asking,
answer.
is
Right.
not taking people's money
I agree.
with no concrete way of coming through with our promise.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I
it
agree.
doesn't mean we can't revive it at some point down the road if.
We can continue to look for grants and
Yeah.
money to help us do something, but we don't
But
need to be charging people.
I agree with
anymore.
removing the $2. I do.
I mean, OMAG's our people, isn't it, that we get the power from, is it OMAG?
OMPA.
OMPA. When I talked to them, they encouraged us to do a new plant, basically. And they said, there's a lot of federal money out there. You're talking about $10 or $15 million. And he said that, doesn't hurt to apply for it, but you could get, if you could get a $5 million grant to redo this, because there is a need to keep electricity on the grid. And they would buy from us during peak times.
Right.
So it would generate some revenue, but then again, your $2 fee is gonna turn into a $12 fee or something to pay off the bonds that our share of the money, because if we can get $5 million in federal funds, we're gonna have to put at least $5 million with it probably. And that may be doable, and it'll help us apply for the grant.
Right.
And we just need to get to it sometime this year.
Anything else? I say you discontinue the $2 for right now too. I'll make a motion to stop collecting the $2 power plant fee on bills going out.
I'll second. Vote.
Peterson,
Yes.
Manasco,
Yes.
McCaslin,
Yes.
Huckabee.
Yes.
All right, item 6, discussion and possible action to approve invoice 22-3009-1 in the amount of $3,334.50 for sanitary sewer main wastewater treatment plant upgrade from Myers Engineering.
I'll make a motion. This is already on the-
I'll second. Vote.
Peterson,
Yes.
Masco,
Yes.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
Buckday,
Yes.
Item 7, presentation and discussion of Mangum Utility Authority, City of Mangum, and all its related funds, estimated needs and revenues for fiscal year 2024 with emphasis on prioritizing funding projects.
Okay, so you have another batch of pages there for the Mangum Utility Authority. The first page is a summary. We're looking at maybe $5.4 million in revenue, $5.2 million in expenses, and so we show $197,000 that we can transfer to other needs within the city. I've made a little list down at the bottom as to where those transfers would go. $272,000 out of water, electric has a $783, wastewater $238, and down below that I show where those transfers went to. And general fund is the biggest beneficiary. Some went to sanitation, and some went to the pool. So that's kind of a summary of these departments. If you look, I put a page, I discovered that I didn't have page 2 of the water thing, and I put that page on the top. It's just a little strip that looks like this. That is the totals of what was on the first page. I don't know how it didn't print out, but in my haste, I left it off. So it gives you water revenues, and it gives you expenses, the typical expenses, employment expenses, et cetera. We've got, I think, water, did it have an extra person from last year? I can't remember. Water or streets did. Can't remember.
like an extra employee,
Yeah,
we did in the streets.
because we've got a budget proposal that's like double what this year's proposal was. So this looks like it's had one person in it, or two.
Our water department was short due to those 2 guys.
Yeah.
That were on.
Oh, that's right, 2 guys came out of it. So anyway, we've got it back to where it needs to be, and probably was, or should have been last year. The other operating expenses, they're materials and supplies. Right now, we have a lot of meters that need to be replaced. We have a well pump. We're going to try to get it into this year's budget, but if we don't, we're going to have to get it out of next year's budget. That's several $1,000s for a pump. Right now, Harold told me that we had a well pump working that's been working for 8 months without stopping because we lost one of the pumps. And so obviously that's not a good idea. And so I've already told him to let's get one. I think we're going to find the money in this year's budget, so that'll help, but we may have to buy another one next year because we're getting a lot of wear and tear on those, and that's our lifeline there. So I put quite a bit of money in materials and supplies. For water, we do a lot of repair work, we need to buy some meters. We don't want to buy too many, though, until we find out more about this program to get the automatic, automatic remote meters, or ARM? Yeah.
AMR, I think.
AMR. Whatever that is. And and I'll just talk a little bit about that right now, because the meters are, they're sort of state-of-the-art, and basically, you can have one person drive around town with a laptop and collect all the data from all the meters. It's $800,000, but the money is forgiven over time. I don't know how much time it is. So basically, we're talking about zero cost, other than maybe some engineering and stuff like that. Because the engineering people are the ones that are urging us to apply. This is a first come, first served kind of thing. It's also points based, so we have to have a good application. but we got to have it by June 1st, I think. So we've already put something in the paper, looking for bids on stuff. It'll go in Friday's paper. So we should be able to get everything in order by the end of the month so that they can make that application. So it'd be real exciting if we could get that. It's a real game changer for our utilities. And we probably need all new meters anyway, because I think we've only installed less than 2 dozen in the last couple of years. Most of them are refurbished. You know, we just take them out and fix them and put them back in. So they're becoming antiques really quickly. One thing I don't know, and I just didn't have time to research it, and Irma may know this, the water improvement payment. We're still making that payment, right?
Yes, but I think it's almost done.
Okay, I couldn't tell from last year's numbers.
I think we only had a couple of payments because we just had to sign that document showing how many payments we had left.
Okay.
And it wasn't very many.
So I've got 130,000 budgeted in there, which is what we've been paying a year. I think we make it semi-annual payments or something like that. So we're pretty close to knocking that out, so that'll be a real difference for us there. You can see down at the bottom where it says transfers out. In previous years, we've transferred a lot of money out to different, and they're worthy causes. I'm not saying that we did something bad. But this year, we're only doing the general fund because there's just not enough money there. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But you see on the totals, we do show a 5% overage, which I try to hit because I believe we're required to have, and Corey may know the answer to this, 5% reserve. Is that still 5%?
Should be 10.
It should be 10?
Under the municipal budget and act, you should have 10% reserve.
No, well, I got more work to do. It used to be 5, I know it did, 50 years ago when I lived here in Oklahoma. So next page is the electric, and the electric is an interesting department this year because everybody recalls the expensive summer we had with electric bills, July and August, the first part of this year, and we really, the fuel adjustment charge, which is the increase in natural gas prices that utilities don't have to go and get permission to do, they can just pass it along. It went way up. I know that there were some at like $60, $70 a month, maybe more, and that's just the fuel adjustment charge on top of our charges. So it's really, you can see the budget there, 2023 budget, they projected 2.5 million and change for the year, for this current year. It looks like we're going to do about 2.9 and change. So that's almost $500,000 more than what they thought they would do. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's basically due to July, August, and probably some of September, because September was hot. Anyway, I budgeted a little bit more than that because I just think the inflation rate and at some point, you know, we don't know how hot the next summer is going to be, but hopefully it won't be quite as substantial as this. But I budgeted a little more, and I'm not sold on that number yet, but that's what I have so far. Wind power has also taken a lot of share from our overall electric revenues, so that's good in a way. And so really, you're looking at about a 13, almost 14% increase in revenue, even without the power plant fee, and so that's pretty strong, and that might be too strong. So that may be something I have to revise as we get further down the road. You got pretty much normal employment expenses. In the next section where it says other operating expenses, you got credit card fees there. We pay about $25,000 a year in credit card fees, and I'll talk to you here in a minute about how an option that we can do to kind of mitigate that cost. So on the second page, you'll see our total, we had transfers in that we transferred out to, I think that was the one to the general fund as well. Yeah, we got a total expense, and we're showing about a 7.7% reserve on this one. So that's positive. The next page is code, sanitation, and animal control, which is, you wonder, why are those related? Well, they're not. But we did some changes. Most of you know that we've named Justin Spears as the code enforcement officer. I think he's going to do a great job. We've already gone out and started talking to people and really looking at the more serious cases. And it'll take a while for this to ramp up, but I think he'll do a good job. We've all, on this group, I think, have all talked about, dilapidated houses and the hazards they create and the eyesores they create and things like that. And we're going to work with property owners on ways to minimize their cost if we have to take something down. And I think that'll help a lot because, some people may have an old barn or an old house place that's on a lot next to them that they acquired at some point, and it costs $4,000 or $5,000 to knock that down. So not everybody can afford to do that. But we need to do it as a city, as a whole. I think we all need to jump in and start making changes, because when you knock down a dilapidated house, there's room for another house, and hopefully we can increase the value of people's property by knocking these hazards down and allowing them then to either sell this lot and make money or build a new house there. So it's a win-win for everybody, I think, and he'll do a real good job at that. The reason why I've combined these is that in addition to his code enforcement work, I wanted him to have some staff that he can oversee and as a young manager, sort of get into that role and learn through experience. So we've got our sanitation guys down at the recycle place there. There's 3 down there, and we have animal control. We've got right now we're losing the part-timer, so we've got 1 person right now on animal control, and that'll fall in this department. So those people will work out of the admin area back here, and he has an office back there. So we think we'll have a little tighter control on what goes on, because that animal control has been kind of on its own for a while, because it's way down there. The kennel area is miles away, and really all the action ought to be here, and we need to go there to take care of the animals, but that's an hour or two, and then get back in town in case there's a need. So we're going to try to work through that and have Justin move that over. He'll be taking over that on July 1st, the new fiscal year. And that's, you see there also transfer from general fund as part of the revenue. That's what we needed in order to make the numbers work for all this. So even though it shows like really our expenses are only up 1.7% on all this, we've got big payments on the garbage, and I know people hate, and I hate writing a check that has a $21 or $22 garbage bill on it, but we don't have much choice because right now we're in this contract. We are going to reach out to Altus to see if we can make some changes, get some numbers at least, and run the numbers, see if there's a way to reduce that. We're in a year-to-year contract, I think, for 2 or 3 more years, but if there's a way to get out of that, we'd like to, if these other numbers work for us. Otherwise, we don't have a choice. We're just sort of held hostage. There are other solutions out there, but they're not as probably clean as this could be, but we may have to look at them, because you're looking at $400,000 for these payments, and that's a lot
That's a lot.
for something that, well, it has to get done, but, you know. So anyway, that's where we are with, I just call it CSA, Code, Sanitation, and Animal Control. It's its own unique department. Wastewater department, you know, we basically, it's the same people that do the water department, so I didn't put any employees in there. It's really part of the water department, but it's just a subset. And it's, the numbers are basically flat from a year ago, so, well, actually, they're down 3%. And the pool, which we just, I didn't find this until like the last minute, about a week ago, and I thought, what, we got a pool department too? And of course, we had to rush and get this fixed. So we do have a manager, and she's doing a lot of the heavy lifting on it. We did have to transfer in $39,000 to make the budget work. We're still going to be tweaking, since we now have to have 10% reserve instead of 5%. But we do have, let's see, we do have some carryover. The carryover is going to count for us, right, Corey? I mean,
Yeah.
right now we got 700,000 in our operating, so.
Yeah, you can use carryover. It's
Okay.
a credit, so to speak.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the utility rates, and it's this page here, just shortly. And it's stuff that you can just read and digest as you have time, but we talked to a local bank, and they're working with us on trying to minimize our credit card fees, and we have a method we think that will work for us, and I've outlined that on here, and it's basically we're having to adjust our rates and then discounting them for cash payments. So people
Like we do everywhere.
like everybody else is
It's
doing.
like
But
everybody does.
The credit card expense is, you know, years past, nobody worried about the credit card expense, but it's become so expensive that people who pay cash are basically subsidizing the people who use credit cards. So what we want to do is level the playing field a little bit. So if you use a credit card, you'll pay a little bit higher rate. It's very little. And if you use cash, then you're practically paying the same thing. There is a very slight 0.1% increase in that, in this process. So even cash payers will have a slight payment. For a house that has 2,000 kilowatt hours, it's $2. But most people don't have 2,000 hours. A lot of people around here probably have 1,000 or less. So it's $1. So we're trying to do something that's very minimal. The thing that we are trying to do too, though, is we want people who live outside the city and get our utilities to bear a little bit more of the burden. So we've made a little bit more of an increase for people who live outside the city limits. They would still see a cash discount for cash. The other rates are kind of self-explanatory. There's a little bit of tweaking on the Mangum water rates. The residential water, it's 10 cents for every 1,000 gallons over 2,000. So you're going to have to use a lot of water to lose 50 cents on that. Residential water outside the city, we bumped that up a little bit more. Commercial water inside the city, 25-cent increase. Commercial water outside the city, it's $1.10. So, and this is really, most of these are only effective after 2,000 gallons. So I know if you have a family, you're gonna use 4,000 or 5,000. So over 2,000, you know, 3,000 gallons is gonna be 30 cents on some of this. So it's very minimal, but there's I can see some compression in our budget from where revenues used to be and where expenses used to be, and it's going like this. And I'd rather nickel and dime people than to really hit our rates like we did the garbage rates, which we didn't have a choice on, like a 8.6% increase. We don't want to do that. That's not a way to do it. This is almost not even noticeable. So it'll help a little bit. It's not going to move the needle a lot, but it will keep us from continuing this trend of compression, which we don't want. We don't want those lines to meet.
Right.
And so that's where we are on the rates. The only other thing I'll say is this is kind of the summary sheet of everything. It's the two funds, the general fund and the authority revenues added together, and the expenditures of the general fund and the expenditures of the authority added together, and it gives us a negative number. But we have our carryover, which I've got 490,000 in there now, but it looks like it's going to be more like 700,000, hopefully. That will get us up there. I don't like having red numbers on an operational basis anyway, so I'm still going to try to tweak this so that we can get at least neutral instead of a red number. And then, but I'm not sure we can do that this year. Now, with our little tweaks, it might help us get where we want to be without doing a whole lot more. So, anyway, that's a lot to digest, and I know you guys are just can't wait to get home and read this again, watch the replay on the video, and but that's about all I have right now. And I'll entertain any questions if you have any right now, and like I said, I'm happy to answer questions later on.
All right, y'all ready to move on? Okay, any staff or board remarks? New business? How about a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second.
Everybody second, we're ready to vote.
Everybody say amen.
Harrison?
Yes.
Manasco?
Yes.
Castleton?
Yes.
Huckabee?
Yes.
All right, adjourned.